the sports world at some point won't necessarily get back to normal, but it'll get back to existing. And President Trump mentioned yesterday in his daily coronavirus task force briefing that he has convened a meeting of sports commissioners and other influential individuals, and he believes that sports will return without fans. And we have been bracing for that reality for a while now. However it's going to look, however it's going to sound, however it's going to feel, it's going to start off without fans. But then the president acknowledged something that has been bouncing around in the discussion about this, Peter, for the past few weeks, and that's the possibility of a phase-in where at first, instead of the stands opening up again and being full, it's going to be people with space between them, a checkerboard type of a pattern, which is just going to be bizarre when that occurs. But he believes that's going to happen, and I think people in the sports world believe that's going to happen before we get full stadiums back. Because, look, you get some ticket revenue that way. You get some fan interaction and involvement. You just don't have the full-blown experience. And I don't know when that occurs, but I tend to agree that at some point we will see that, Peter. We will see these stands partially filled, not because it's a Bengals game. Sorry, Bengals, but that's kind of how your games have looked lately. But because that's the limit as to who's going to be allowed in the stadium.
Mike, I think Dr. Fauci the other day basically kind of laid out exactly what this will be. And I've had a couple of conversations with people around the league who, you know, honestly, a general manager, when I'm talking to him about the draft, as you understand, they have a few monitors on because they're doing a lot of draft stuff, and they might be on a Microsoft Teams thing with their team or Zoom video conference or FaceTime, whatever. But they also have the news on. They understand what's going on. And I had two conversations with general managers this week about what's happening. And I think the first reaction to 5 months from now, less than 5 months from now, the Kansas City Chiefs are scheduled to open on Thursday night, September 10, against somebody. Houston, maybe, Atlanta, I don't know, somebody. And most likely, I'd say, you know, it's getting more and more likely by the day, they'll play in an empty stadium. And if indeed that happens, how weird and strange that it's going to be if you have to play without fans. You know, in fact, Stephen Hauschka, the Buffalo kicker, told me last week that, you know, he honestly thinks that coaches are going to have to talk to players about playing in a stadium without fans for a variety of reasons. You know, you don't want your signals heard and all that other stuff. But I do think, Mike, it is part of the new normal that we're all going to have to deal with in the United States. And if you are in the NFL, you know that in some way, and I don't want to be too corny, that you're going to be part of the, quote, getting back to normal and sort of the healing of this country, because obviously once the games start in September, if indeed they do, I think then you have all of the people who watch the games are going to be looking forward to it as normal. And remember, what's the figure? 93, 95% of the people who watch NFL games are watching them on television. They're not watching them in person. So I really believe that even though how weird it'll be to not have games with fans at them, I mean, it's better to have the games without the fans than to not have the games.
And one of the realities of these various plans and possibilities that are being discussed, Peter, is that every answer that arises gives rise to more questions. When Dr. Fauci talks about the feasibility of playing the games and basically sequestering the teams in a big hotel, okay, fine. Well, who's going to go along with that? Who's going to leave his family behind for 4 months? Are they going to be allowed to have their families with them in a hotel that all of a sudden gets even bigger when you add a spouse and a couple of kids to it? There will be plenty of issues that need to be addressed, and that's why I continue to be an advocate of as much planning as you possibly can do now, because the act of planning, the act of identifying solutions gives rise to more questions. Just the possibility of a checkerboard pattern in a stadium to keep fans sufficiently separate, Peter. How in the hell do you get the people in and out? How do you get them to the bathroom, right? When you're the guy who's dead center in the row of 20 seats and you've got people on each side of you and they're 3 seats away, so while you're watching the game, you have enough distance. How are you going to get past them if you have to pee, right? I mean, so there are so many it's just, I feel like it's an avalanche of questions. Every time we identify, well, maybe this will work, question. It's like, I don't know, maybe it won't work. But that's what's frustrating to me, because we've got these ideas spinning around, and I just wonder, are people really taking it all the way to the bottom of the rabbit hole with all the questions that are going to come up based upon these various scenarios?
Well, Mike, I think one of the things that you're assuming, and this was advanced by the purported baseball model, where players would have to go to Arizona for 4.5 months and leave their families. And I just heard an interview yesterday with Mike Trout, who has a wife who's going to deliver a baby this summer. So if the best player in baseball says, I'm not doing it, then obviously time to come up with another plan. But I don't think it's ever been said that on Labor Day weekend, all the players in the NFL have to go somewhere and be sequestered until January 1st. That's not it. I believe that what Fauci was saying was that every player and every coach, every essential staff member, trainer, all that stuff, all those people essentially are going to be tested once a week. And, if you don't have fans in the stands, and let's say each team would need 150 people to be at every game. Well, you do a test every week, and then what you do is you take their temperature at every game. And, that raises all of the possibilities, too, that if Patrick Mahomes comes in with 101-degree temperature one day, instead of being gutsy and doing the Brett Favre, I'll play with a fever, whatever, you're not playing. So all of these things are going to come up, but I don't believe that the NFL, or I can tell you the NFLPA is going to sign off on people leaving their families for 4 months to play football. I think that they will be tested every week, but I don't think that they're going to have to be monks every week.
I'll just say this, Peter. If you don't sequester the players from the normal pathways to being exposed to the virus, especially if schools are open and the kids may be bringing it home any given day, you better test them a lot more frequently than once a week, because all it takes is one guy to bring it into the locker room and it's going to spread like wildfire. So I don't know what the quality of the testing is going to be when we get to September, but ideally, you'd want to screen a guy for it and know whether or not he has it before he walks into the building every day, because all it takes is that one guy. And then you have, and again, this is why I'm saying every answer we come up with triggers more questions. What if one guy has it? Yeah. How long is he taken out of circulation? Who else is taken out of circulation? And you have to be willing to apply the same rules to the backup center that you applied to the franchise quarterback if Tom Brady tests positive, even if he's completely asymptomatic. So every answer spawns more questions, and hopefully people far smarter than us are addressing those questions and coming up with the answers.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.